So it's Sunday, and I've had some mixed experiences. For example, right now I'm like writing a little bit, so like that's very exciting for me because I've been meaning to do this for the longest time, and I finally was able to do it. It's happening at the same time that I'm watching like a video here, and I'm writing a little bit, and then there's also the translating thing that I'm doing, and I think that I'm back to the whole translating gig. I have, like it's going to be a long road because it is 350 pages about that, and I, like translating it, I wish it's like much slower than just like reading something. Sometimes the translation it just flows really, like very seamlessly, but sometimes it doesn't, and then it's just like a whole effort that you have to make to make sure that things are happening. And there's also like the list of some things that I leave behind, for me to check out later, like how exactly do I feel like this later. And I'm thinking about like, do I try to have something definitive, or do I just leave this, little bits and pieces behind, and still deciding what I'm gonna do. But I'm excited that I'm able to, write a little bit because writing is one of like the things that is really going to save me. And I mean this not in a creepy way. It's just that it is something that I enjoy doing, something that it makes me feel fulfilled and contented. Like on the present time when I'm doing this, but also on the long run because I'm working towards a novel. So when I finish the novel in the long run, like that is also going to be something that is going to fulfill me, something that I'll be able to look at that and be like, yeah, this is what my life's all about. Not what it's all about, but like this is at least something that I'm doing with my, something that just stands as kind of like as a testament of like your time and what you're doing. And it's something that, as I said, that I enjoy. It's always been one of like the things that makes my life feel very meaningful, writing. So I'm excited about this, although as I said, I'm like doing it back and forth because I don't know, I'm adjusting myself some time because like it's normal. I wasn't writing for a long time, so I'm just easing myself back to it. So I think it's normal for me to just need some intermissions as I'm writing. And I think that the idea, but this idea is not for this to be always like this. It's just for as more time passes, for me to be able to do increasingly more, with to spend increasingly more time, writing. And yeah, I don't have a plan, a precise plan as far as like I'm gonna do this and then that, because I have to finish this novel. I don't have to, but I want to finish this novel. So there are things that I'm already kind of developed. I think that I'm like halfway through the point where my novel is going to be when I finish my first draft, and then from there I'm going to reduce significantly, and when I'm going for the second and third and fourth times, I'm going through the novel. So right now it's very it's still the first draft basically. I do have some stuff that I'm writing and I'm really happy with, so I know that this is going to make it, make it going to be the final product. But yeah, I don't have like a plan as far as like I'm going to be writing this section or that section, because I'm easing myself back to it. I'm just like going through it and just seeing whatever the words are flowing, then I stop there and I just let it kind of like go for a little while. So yeah, so that's some of the positive things that's been happening with me. A negative thing that's been happening is that I've been kind of like very because usually there's a tide over there, and like it's cutting the wind, and the sound is a little distracting for me. And also I'm not I think that I'm not dizzy as I was before, but I've been mostly sitting down and laying down. So I think that this whole thing of like me just standing up right now, like this is a testament to see if I'm like back to being better, or if I'm still if that's not the case yet. But what I was trying to say is that I've been watching more videos, and not just like, because I think that I haven't really been watching a whole lot of stuff lately. And what I did was from like the thing I mentioned, like the pre-established things that I want to watch, both stuff that is like on my watch later list, but also stuff that the new stuff coming. Usually like it's not like everything that I'm gonna watch. There are some things that I'm like more interested in watching. And then what happened today and yesterday is that I was watching a lot of stuff, particularly today, that I wasn't really planning on watching. So, and I was kind of like stuck you know, I guess like you call it scroll paralysis. I was kind of, yeah, like I kept you know, clicking on a lot of different things and watching it. Because sometimes you click on something and then like halfway through it, I lose interest, so I move on. But this time around, like I was actually watching the things and a lot of stuff that I don't understand why my head is like that, but it is, and that is, you know, something for me to just keep in mind, because I could, you know, if I wasn't really able to convert, because there's stuff that I want to watch, you know, like on Netflix or HBO Max, and I could maybe to convert, you know, these moments of like me wanting to watch something, but nothing specifically to watch those things, but I haven't really been able to convert that. You know, I haven't really found like the interest basically. But I don't know, I think maybe I watch like shorter term things, particularly love the stuff I have to watch. It's kind of long, and maybe it's not like that long, but like it is longer than like I'm willing to watch. So, you know, but that's kind of like what is happening. Some of the negatives, like I'm watching more things, which I'm kind of like unhappy about, because I wish I would be, you know, writing more, you know, doing when I'm like, you know, watching these things. But that's that. But yeah, but like this particular state of mind, I haven't had in a long time. Like honestly, like in months, I think I haven't really, you know, been like this. So I don't know if this is significant. You know, if this means that like I am moving to a new stage in my state of mind. You know, like if things are changing, things are, you know, like adapting. I don't know what exactly like what this means, but I hope there's not anything bad. You know, I hope it is not. You know, I hope I don't get stuck just watching things pointlessly. I hope I can, you know, really put myself out of this, and you know, either watch things that like I'm meaning to watch, or you know, because it's the weekend, so it's okay for me to be like this during the weekend. If this was during the week, it would be, you know, worse, and I would be more worried. But since it's just the weekend, I'm kind of okay with just this pointless watching, and I don't know. I'm just very. I'm both frustrated, but also not. I'm like, part of me is like, that's not a big deal, you know, like it's going to, like, you're gonna figure it out. You know, it feels like I'm back to writing, so like let's say by tomorrow I'll be doing better in terms of, you know, like what I'll be doing with my time, my free time. And I don't know, I have no reason to believe that things are going to continue or to change. Like everything seems like equally plausible that this is the beginning of something, or if this is just an isolated factor that I have no control over, or I don't really know, you know, what is going to, what it means for my future, you know. Yeah, so I think a part of me is just like, don't make a big deal out of it, because it's not nothing. You know, like you're just gonna figure it out. The other part is like, this is a pattern. You know, it's a pattern that I observed today, much more frequently than yesterday. Yesterday I had like a couple examples. Today I have a bunch already. So, you know, I'm a little worried, but also maybe it's just resting. You know, sometimes your brain, like, you know, you just get to a point where you need to rest, and then you just, you know, gets fixated on things, or maybe it doesn't get fixated on things. Instead of like you want to get, you know, focus on something, but then, you know, you kind of like get, you know, stuck with like a lot of little nothings, but like it's resting. So, you know, I think that as long as this is just happening as I rest, it's fine. You know, if it is, you know, actually translates into something more in my personal life or in my professional life, my academic life, or whatever, then, you know, it's going to be more of an issue. But as of right now, it's just a little something. You know, I have no, and there's no indicators that it will keep on happening. Although I also have no indicators that it will not keep on happening. Because also, like, I'm being, you know, going back and forth with writing. Today I had like a moment where I had a longer run, and I think that happened, you know, after, you know, like the last moment of distraction I had. It happened as kind of like a bit of a reward for, you know, a long moment that I had where I was, you know, writing and focusing. And I don't know, that's that. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's not, I don't know, but I'm not going to worry about it right now, particularly because I still have a bunch of hours before it is night time, and I know I have to go to bed. So I'm going to try and make the best out of this time that I have, and, you know, like not let you know, the negatives, you know, come up more often than they have to. Also, changing the topic, I decided that like after my access consciousness therapy session that I had Friday, I'm gonna have at least like an extra EMDR therapy session with my EMDR therapist, because I think some things that were brought to the surface that I should probably address, and I think that a session might be helpful because it's something that I complained about with the other therapists, that it feels like things they come up but like they don't leave, they're still there, they kind of like stay concentrated on you, and that is something that I like negative from when I it was a downside for that. Of course, that I only had like one session, but I don't know, I think I mentioned this before, like I'm a very skeptical person, so like I really struggle believing things, and I don't really believe the things that are being said. To be completely honest, that there is something happening. This whole thing. I usually struggle with religion for the same reason. So like any ideology that involves you're talking about energy and the universe and all that, I'm like, yeah, I don't. And that's the thing. Like maybe I should try to believe in, but like that makes no sense to me. So like I'm not even going to. It's not even feasible for me to try and believe in that because it makes no sense for me to do that. It's just what I'll be doing if I do some type of religion where I just put up with it, what's happening around me, and I'm like, there, okay, you're doing your thing, but like I don't, there's nothing happening basically. So yes, I still don't know how I would put this exactly to the lady who did the therapy session, because she sent me some things and some resources, and she sent them to my dad as well, because my mom added my phone and my dad's phone, so she said that she liked the both of us, and I don't know, maybe I should I don't know, she was like, I'm cowering away from my problems. I'm not, it's just that I don't want to hurt her feelings, but the explanations to why I'm not going to continue involved me pretty much saying that what she believes in is bullshit, and I don't want to, like I don't believe in things, but I don't want to be an asshole about it. I mean, when I was younger, I was a teenager, that was kind of like a more present thing, but like at this point in time, I'm like, life is hard enough, like find solace where you find it, and I mean, as long as you're not harming other people, and I mean, that's the arguable thing, like you're harming yourself, because you could argue that by doing that, by believing these things and pushing these ideologies, these ideas, these mentalities, whatever you call them, you are kind of harming yourself. Although in her case, she seems to be doing pretty well. She things are working pretty well for her. I don't think that what's happening is a result of these things, but I guess I don't think she's harming herself by believing these things. And also, she was not super abrasive. She's not pretty much like not taking medication, which some people are, and also I think about my approach, because as I said, I'm trying to be respectful of people's beliefs and what they like, the things that they hold as relevant, as important to them. And I usually I'll do a lot of listening to things, and sometimes in the past, like, this has led people to believe that like I actually align with what they have to say, nothing bad, but just like just different ideas. I think my parents sometimes they have like a hard time understanding that I don't really believe in the things that they believe in, because I'm not constantly criticizing them or all of that. We just have a really chill relationship. So I think that they sometimes think that I'm like starting to go back on what I have said before, but it's not the case. So I think this is a very normal thing to happen, to humanity, to human beings. Like you don't outwardly, criticize something, and then people think that you're kind of like on their side. Sometimes they are. Sometimes that is pretty much what's happening. But when it comes to these things of as I say, religion and energy and the universe and forces and all of that, like that, my stance has been the same since forever. Even before it was the same stance. Like I was already, like not fully. I never fully embraced or fully believed in things. Like that was one of the reasons why I started to, notice that I wasn't really attuned with everybody around me, because I grew up in a very, very, very religious context, And it was just my lack of belief that made me just be like, okay, I think we are not on the same page right now. And but as I said, like I don't, when I was as I was younger, I used to be very vocal with like my criticisms. And honestly, to be fair, I think I was just fine because the religious things that were being forced upon me, like they were harming me actually. So like I had a right to just point out like the mistakes and the bullshit and all of that. But like right now, as I said, like I think I don't care. I think that's ultimately what happened, is that I stopped caring about things, and not in a bad way, because I mean there are a lot of things that you stop caring about, but I think that it's kind of like for your best, because you just stop thinking about like, as I said, as long as people are not harming other people, or not harming themselves, I think that whatever you believe in, you stick with that, I guess. But that is a whole conversation, because then it's talking about harm, and then the same things, they're harmful, some people are going to deny they're harmful. Some people, they ignore that something's harmful because it aligns with what they believe in. It's something that I've observed. My parents they're great parents, but there's a couple of things that they have done that were not great, and they, to this day, I think they currently, like, they have been able to acknowledge why what they did was bad. But at the time, like, I don't think they didn't think it was bad, because to them there was this one truth, and then everything had to do with that. So that truth kind of like empowered them to do a lot of like things that were not great for me. But at the same time, like I know that they learned, because some of the things they did to me, they didn't do to my brother. So like we all learned and got better. So there's that. But anyways, I might take another session. My theory is that I have, that I was mentioned to my parents yesterday, is that like basically my fantasies and my expectations, my dreams, my hopes, my everything they're always so heightened. They are absolutely insane and unrealistic, and they are just like impossible a lot of the time. But that is pretty much the things that fill my brain. They are, they said, like they are improbable and impossible a lot of the time, but they are pretty much what I want. And having those fantasies, those dreams, like it's not good for me, because they kind of like exist in contrast with my life, and they are just this very sad megalomaniac things. So what they are is very different from like what I have, and that just leads me to be very frustrated and dissatisfied with my reality. Even though like there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's definitely things that I can do, that I can change and all that, but none of them, like, they're going to lead me to these fantasies. So basically my theory is that the reason why I have these fantasies is because it's kind of like a compensation thing. So some of the issues that I have learned, that I have with stuff in the past, like they because a lot of like the fantasies I've developed throughout the years, they existed as a just juxtaposition to my reality. Like they existed as kind of like a compensation mechanism, for what didn't happen. So instead of like dealing with my failures, I created these realities where I didn't fail, and what I was doing that made up for whatever failures I had, whatever shortcomings I had. So there's a lot of that, and I think that to this day, my fantasies, there's still something of that. Like they are trying to make up for something. They end up being maybe they're always going to be magnanimous. That is the chance that that's always going to be the case. But I feel like that they take in a role in my life to make up for certain things that like in theory I'm okay with, but I'm realizing that maybe I'm not. So these things I'm going to deal with in the past, they might end up leading to me having more realistic fantasies that don't lead to me being so unhappy and dissatisfied with my life. And that in itself would already be like lift a huge weight off my shoulders, because that is something that I have to constantly face the fact that what I want, it is just so differently, and in such a disproportionate way from what I have and what I can have. And that is that sometimes it has had in the past the fact of making me no longer want to live, because I want that thing. I don't want to settle for anything less than that. And that's like a very dangerous mindset to have, particularly for somebody like me. So I have my idea is that so yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up right now. But what I'm trying to say is that I think that there are things that I still have to address in my past that I didn't realize that I had. So I'm grateful for like that access consciousness therapy for this, because I mean, I don't know if like that, I don't think that that would have been the only way that I would have come across this. I think that maybe my brain was already like on the brink of, you know, thinking this, but it was the means by which this happened. And now I have you know, a better understanding of something that has to do with the past and that I have to address. But yeah, so that's kind of like that. I have I don't know, I have hopes for the future right now, because I think that maybe if I fix this thing in the past, like it's going to have very positive effects for my life right now. Also, like, it was very telling, you know, like those memories, it kind of like made me realize that, you know, I kind of like I am the way I am, and it just, I am a consequence of the experiences I have had. And, you know, seeing some of those experiences, I realized like, okay, like I get how I went from point A to point B. I get why I crave certain things, why my fantasies, I am a certain way, and certain things happen, and I have certain interactions, and I am the way that I am. You know, like, of course, like, I had like a basic understanding before that, you know, whatever was happening, like, oh yeah, this is like an archetype, people want this thing, so I want this thing. But now I understand why exactly is that I specifically want some of these things. And it's important because there's some of the things that I want that they make no sense for me as a person. Like, I don't, the fact, I think about some of the experiences I had as a kid, and like if they had happened to me right now, and to be fair, like a lot of times things are really impactful, you know, when you're a kid, like when you're an adult, like you don't have the same weight, because, you know, like you're older and you've lived more and you have more experience. But basically the point is that the things that made me vulnerable when I was younger, they don't make me vulnerable right now. So it makes no sense for me to just crave to be certain ways, for me to be perceived to be certain ways. But now I kind of like get why, and you know, why is that I am like looking forward to this. Why is that this is pretty much how this certain version of myself, right, manifests, and why it is like that. So I'm really grateful for, you know, like, it was important. I was able to kind of like create this timeline, you know, that exists before, because I had this first a very traumatic experience that I had. Not as traumatic as the experience I had when I was 13, but like it was the first like big one that I dealt with in therapy. It happened when I was in 4th grade, and it was very telling and very informed me a lot into like why I ended up becoming the way that I was, you know, after that, and why I made the choices that I made in terms of like how I interacted with people, or not, or how I didn't interact with people. But, you know, like, there's more, basically. Like, at that point, the reason why that was so impactful at that age, when I was 10, is because when I was 6, 7, other things happened. So like, they made me, they are the reason why I was vulnerable to certain things. And it was an interesting thing also to kind of like assess how you basically, like, your home life can, you know, make up, or how it doesn't always make up for the things that are happening outside. Because while like my experience, the experience I had at home was very different from the experience I had when I was at school or at church, in terms of like being wanted and needed and desired, that type of thing. You know, like at home, I was always very, you know, very dear to people, and, you know, I was always made to feel that I was important and valued and loved and all those things. And that was important for me. But, you know, in other environments, like, that was not really the case. So in some ways, like, one made up for the other, but in some other ways, I kind of like realize now that, like, that is not enough, which sounds bad, because, you know, the love of your family, you know, should, you know, make up for like everything, you know, in a certain way. But it kind of doesn't, and it does make sense. You know, I think that this is how, you know, like, everybody has perceived life. You know, like, there are things that, you know, you have at home that you don't have outside of home, but, you know, like, you still needed that affirmation external. Maybe you didn't, or maybe things didn't happen in the way that they should. Maybe there is a way that we could have made up for things, because also, like, these are things that they brought a certain level of shame, so I didn't want to mention them. I didn't want to fully acknowledge them, you know, at certain points in time, because I was, you know, because I was vulnerable. That was made me feel vulnerable and exposed. And I have had, there's a pattern, you know, in my life of like me rejecting things that make me feel vulnerable and exposed, but then I reject them. So, but I'm not really dealing with them. So, you know, I'm not solving the issue. I'm not, you know, tackling the problem. I'm just, you know, kind of like postponing them. And it's interesting because it is just all these little experiences, all these very, you know, small experiences and how like some of them, they are bigger than others. It's interesting because like when I think about the earliest experience that I had that really led to me starting to form this timeline and start to reassess things in the past, is that it was something that at the time I remember it made me sad, but I kind of rejected it in a certain way. Instead of like tackling the fact that it made me sad, I was kind of like pushed it down a little bit, which is interesting because I thought, now that I think about it, I thought I started doing that later. But even then, like I remember, I think I cried a little bit, but I kind of, didn't mind that particular thing. And I thought I didn't mind, but I did, but it was how things, they happen. But yeah, but it was interesting because a new timeline has been formed that is not different. It just like adds to what I already had, in mind from the past and my traumas and my experiences as a kid. So yeah, so I think that the reason that I crave to be some in some ways, or to be perceived to be in some ways, has to do with those early experiences of me perceiving myself being something and being perceived by that, in a certain way, and like me wanting to make up for that and wanting to kind of like reject that notion. So I'm kind of like end up being the very opposite, and that's the thing. I also, I don't love, this is like an older notion that I've had, but I don't love that I crave to be like that so much, be like the opposite of what I was, when I was younger. And that what exactly is that? I was, as I said, I was kind of like in the second place. I was never really like the number one anything. I mean, academically I was, but in terms of socially speaking, there was a lot of like isolation, and it was not, it wasn't at a time where I was isolating myself. I started isolating myself. That was like later. So hold on. I'm just gonna conclude what I was saying. But that those periods of times where I thought there was a level of projection, and that is something that when it comes to kids, like it's always something that we have to deal with and all that. And when I was younger, I didn't really realize that there was these moments of projection, so I didn't feel like I had to do anything about them. So like right now is the time that I'm like dealing with all these little moments. As I said, I'm creating a little timeline. I'm like, okay, so I didn't want to acknowledge that I was being rejected, so I didn't. I kind of like I look at things as if I either didn't care. And that's the thing, like as an adult, like I don't care, but for you to get to this point, that's a whole journey, of you having involved like you processing your feelings and your emotions, and how like in things that happen, instead of just being like, nah, I don't care, even though that was like my tendency of just being like, I don't care, or sometimes not even like thinking that I don't care, I just completely ignoring them. I was kind of like erasing the connotations of rejection from that. And I think that maybe these moments from when I was a kid, like they are going to be the key to me unlocking some of the stuff that I kind of like crave for in the present time. I think that there is a connection, and I think that now that I know that, I can like work on that. I'm gonna end this right now because I'm getting a little dizzy, but that's kind of that. Anyways, bye.